Welcome back. So today we're going to be making a really quick and easy drawstring gift bag. So for Christmas this year, I've made my grandsons these cute little dragons. So this is an embroidery pattern that I found on planetapplique.com, and they make these, just cute little felt dragons. So I wanted a little bag to put them in. Sorry, they keep falling. But anyway, they're just these cute little felt dragons, and I wanted to be able to put them in a bag. So I've got some dragon fabric here, and we're gonna make a quick little bag for them. So I used a fat quarter with this. You can use yardage or whatever you want to, but again, I just took one fat quarter, cut it into the pieces that I needed, and here we are. So the sizes that you're going to need are 10 1/4 by 14. So 10 1/4 wide by 14. Once you square up your fat quarter, this is about what you're going to get left with. So that's why I did it this size, is because it's quite literally, the size that you need. And then you're going to need two 34 to 36 inch lengths of ribbon. I made 4 little gift bags, and these are the last 2 ribbons I have left. So they're close in color, but not quite. But anyhow, 2 lengths of ribbon that are 34 inches. You're going to need a point turner, a little chalk marker or hair marker or whatever. If your fabric is dark like mine, a hair marker is probably not going to work well. So that's why I've got chalk, a little measuring tape, some pins, double stick tape, and a bodkin. Okay, so the double stick tape is a little trick that I have learned making these bags to help get the ribbon threaded through a little bit easier. You don't have to use the double stick tape, but it does save a little bit of frustration. So let's get these things out of the way, and I'll show you the first step. So the first step is going to be putting your pieces wrong sides together. So you want to go tall wise this way, so your 14-inch is going to be facing upwards, and you're just going to kind of line those up as best you can. If they're off a little bit, not a huge deal. And then you're just going to take a couple of pins, pin the corners a bit, pin a little bit up the sides. And then when you get to the top, so this is the bottom, the part that we've pinned is the bottom, here's the top. So we're going to take that chalk marker and your ruler, and you're going to mark down 2.5 inches. And we're going to make a mark at the 2.5 inch mark on both sides of your bag. Okay, so just like that, 2.5 inches. And then we're going to keep pinning just, 1 or 2 more pins here. And now we're going to take this over to the machine. Right sides out, wrong sides together, because we're doing the French seam technique again. And you're going to sew 3/8 of an inch all the way around, starting at that 2.5 inch mark, going down, across, and back up, and ending at that 2.5 inch mark. So just make your stitches again 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, and then we'll meet back here at the table. Now we're at the machine, and I'm just going to sew a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance from that 2.5 inch mark down, across, and then we're going to stop at the other 2.5 inch mark. Okay, so now that we have that 3/8 of an inch seam made, we're going to do a few things next. First thing you want to do is take your scissors and clip just to that line. So you're going to go 3/8 of an inch on both sides, just like I said, clip to that line. Then you're going to take these and open them up. So that double stick tape trick that I was telling you about, this is the best way to put this on, or the best point to put this on. So just take a little bit of your double stick tape, put it right here, and right here, right there along the edges, and leave the backing part of it on, because we'll get to that later. But this is the easiest way to put it on, is to do it now, so that way later on you're not trying to fumble around with your project. Okay, so now the double stick tape is on. Again, we have the little backing paper still on, so now we're just going to move on and leave those alone. Now, the next thing we're going to do is trim these seams to 1/8 of an inch. So kind of fold these up and out of the way, and just take your ruler and follow that line and trim 1/8 of an inch. So you're going to trim that seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch. Get that out of the way. And we're going to do the same thing all the way around. So just fold those out of the way just so you don't accidentally clip them off. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is turn our bag inside out. Now, this is a place where I like to iron because when you're doing a French seam, you want your seams to line up real carefully. Oh, and I'm gonna use a point turner here just to kind of push out those little corners. But anyway, where I iron is in this step. Well, actually, this is one of the steps that I iron. So I just take my iron and iron. Just pull those out, just kind of roll out your little edges there. Iron them, and be careful not to iron over your plastic over here, just because you've got those backings on there and you don't want your iron to melt anything. I'm just going to kind of work your way around the bag. Pull out those little seams there. And then once we're done with this part, we're going to go back over to the machine and we're going to enclose that front seam. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go back over to the machine and we're going to do a 3/8 of an inch this way. So we're going to start at that same 2.5 inch mark, go down, across, back up, just like we did before. That will enclose the seams, and then we're going to come back here and I'll show you how to finish this up. So now we're back at the machine and we're just going to sew all the way around exactly the same places that we did before, starting at this 2.5 inch mark, 3/8 of an inch, all the way down and around and across. Okay, so now we're back at the table, and before we turn this right sides out, I want to go ahead and put a little bit more double stick tape here. This is one thing that I forgot before. I apologize, but you're just going to want to take a little bit this way. The reason why I'm doing this is because when we run the drawstring through, all these loose edges can get caught. So we want to go ahead and just kind of tape them down. You can sew them down, but I find that a little bit of double stick tape works pretty good. And that way I'm not having to do that top stitch or that extra stitches. So we're just going to stick that there. Okay, now we're going to turn the bag inside out and we're going to finish it up. So hopefully I can figure that out how. Okay, so just take your point turner, push your edges out pretty gently. They're going to be a little bit bulky because of that French seam, so just gently push them out as nicely as you can get them. I'd use your finger first and then the point turner, but like I said, you're just going to want to push them out nicely. Okay, and now we're left with this. And then the next thing we want to do is iron these inside. So we're going to get our iron, and then we're going to iron this whole thing. So here's where you can start using some of your double stick tape. I'm going to use this one here. So we're just going to pull off the backing paper. And then a little bit here. I'm not going to do, well, honestly, I guess we can do all of it. So we'll go ahead and pull all of that off there. So you're just going to fold this over just like that. Same thing over here. We're going to get rid of this. Maybe. Oh, I struggle with these so much. The double stick tape is my, oh my goodness. Is my what, nemesis, I think is what it's called. Just sometimes ends up being such a pain. There we go. Okay, I'm going to fold this back, and then now you're going to take this top edge here and you're going to fold it down 1/2 inch approximately. I'm saying approximately just because I'm just eyeballing this at this time. Just like that, all the way across. Now we're going to take our iron and we're just going to iron that down nice and flat, and then we're going to fold it over one more time right down there to that beginning part, or the, you know, where the fabric meets, and then we're going to iron that in place as well. And I'm going to go ahead and stick a pin or two in this just to keep it nice and secure. This right here is what's going to create your drawstring channels. I'm going to put my pins on the outside because we are going to be sewing from the outside, and I don't want to get anything confused and accidentally run over a pin. Okay, now we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. So we'll just kind of, actually, you know what? I'm going to have to do it this way with my pins because I want to be able to get this out of the, ow, ooh, yikes. Don't do that. But we're just going to do them this way, get them out of the way. And you can pin it out of the way if you want to. Sometimes I do that. There we go. Okay, so now again, we're just going to repeat the process on the other side. So take off your double stick tape all the way around. Yikes. Now I have made several of these bags now for my grandsons and for other projects. And like I said, this double stick tape is not 100% necessary, but what tends to happen if you don't use this or some other method to get these seams to lay flatter is when you're pulling your drawstring through, it tends to catch. So if there's a little lip in here, your drawstring is going to catch, and then you're going to try to pull it through and you can't because there's something in the way. So if we do it like this, then we can get these seams down, or get that little channel down nicely and out of the way. So, goodness, like I said, these little double stick tape ends are always a problem for me. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it over, nice and even there, nice and even there. Half an inch down approximately. Fold it over and iron that in place. So just going to iron that. There we go. Now we're going to take it back over to the machine. Once I get these couple little pins in place, we're going to take it over to the machine and we're going to top stitch this whole thing 3/4 of an inch in. So let's get this pin out of the way and I'll show you. So this is what your bag is going to look like, just like this. And you're going to probably take your cover off of your machine so that you're left with that arm, so that way you can kind of put it all the way around. But we're just going to sew 3/4 of an inch this way. And when we do that, it's going to enclose this little end, and then it's going to leave these parts open for your drawstring channel. So let's go over to the machine and finish this up. Okay, so we're back at the machine for our final sewing step. And as you can see, I'm taking off this little tray here on my machine. So all that's left is this little arm, and that's because we're going to put the bag around it just like this and sew all the way around. So basically what you want to do is just sew, again, you want to do a 3/4 of an inch, sew all the way around. When you get to these parts here, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and sew a little bit so I can show you. When you get to those parts there, it's a little bit tricky. So I want to make sure that we're good on that. So hang on, let's go ahead and sew until we get there. So I want to show you a way that you can handle that carefully. So you want to make sure that these pieces right here are basically flat, okay? If they're not flat, you're going to end up closing up your channel. So just kind of carefully sew. And then now we're going to take this pin out. So again, we can make sure that these are flat. So you want to kind of maneuver them that way to where they're both nice and flat. Doesn't look flat, but I promise you it is flat. And you just got to make sure that you maneuver them to where they're nice and flat, butted up next to each other. And there you go. And then you're going to repeat the same thing till you get to the other side, and then do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now we're back and we're ready to thread our ribbon through the bag. So we were left with these little channels here. So hopefully you can see you've got a channel here, and then the same on the other side. And it's nice and neat and clean on the inside. The bag has got enclosed edges, so it's a neat little bag. Anyway, I'm going to take your bodkin and just pinch one edge, and then we're going to thread it through all the way around. I love using a bodkin versus a safety pin because it's just so much easier. There we go. Now, if we didn't have that double stick tape there, I promise you we would have had a bigger issue, because I'm telling you, when I was making my sample bags, I had some trouble. So I'm going to keep running that through. So take it out one side, pull it in, push it into the next side. keep going until it comes out the other side. And then you're going to make sure that your sides are even, so go ahead and release the bodkin. And get your sides nice and even. Okay, just like that. So, well, hold on, almost even. Okay, and you're going to take your ends and just tie them. Now, because this is grosgrain ribbon, and I also have satin ribbon on the other one, you may want to take a lighter and seal the edges so that you don't end up with any fraying when you're all done. But there's one side. So this is what the bag looks like with this one. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So pinch with the bodkin. And you're going to start on this side. So the other time you started on the other side, this time you're going to start the opposite, because you want draw tabs or draw strings on each side. And pull that through. And I'm just going to, you know, pick a way to go back in the other side. Thread it through. All right, come on, where you at? Somewhere in there. There it is. Okay. Now we're going to finish pulling it through. Get the bodkin off. Try to even out the straps here, but again, for demonstration purposes, that doesn't really matter. Tie off our ends. And then there you have it. You have a drawstring bag. Looks just like this, really cute. I think the bag itself, when it's all finished, if you use the 10.5 or 10.25 by 14-inch measurements that we used here, then you'll end up with a bag that's 11 inches by 7.75 inches. So it's the perfect size for all my little dragons here. So we'll throw the dragons inside. And there you have it, a bag of dragons. So I hope that you enjoy this super quick, super clean little gift bag. I know that we're right around the corner from Christmas. In fact, at the filming of this video, we're, I think, 2 days from Christmas. So I know that it might be a little bit late for Christmas gifts, but they do sew up in about 10 minutes or so. So hopefully you learned something. If you did enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment below and let me know what you want to see next. I hope that you guys have a very Merry Christmas, and thank you for watching.